Is everybody?
You're good now. You're super good now. You're super good now.
There we are. We're fixed. Okay.
We're here.
All right. So just letting everybody know, today, before we start, did everyone get my intro? It was a great intro. Did we miss that? Did you guys?
Do it again.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Blood of the Honor panel. My name is Eric. I am the GM and host, and we're going to be meeting and talking and chatting with our cast of the Blood of the Void as part of the Day of Honor. So before I start and kick everything off today, I just want to take a moment and give a huge shout out and thanks to Q Times. Jake has been juggling like 50 plates today and setting this whole thing up for all of us. And I just wanted to give a great shout out to him because he's doing an amazing job. And also our mod, Chandra, who is also juggling a bunch of knives, a bunch of diktoks in chat today, grabbing up questions and stuff like that so that we can all get this done. I just got to give a big shout out because so much work has gone into this. And Q Times and Chandra is really just stepping up and making this happen. So thank you guys so much. We support our elder mods. Quick background on us. I met Aliza back when we were both working at Geek and Sundry, which was a channel that started up. We got most well-known on Twitch for the show that we did called Shield of Tomorrow, which was the first time we got to game together. Shield of Tomorrow, of course, was our Star Trek RPG show that launched right when Star Trek Adventures RPG had come out. Since then, we've always wanted to go back and play some more Star Trek. And we have since launched on here, Q Times, independently, we've launched Clear Skies, which is a brand new Star Trek Adventures campaign. When that was happening, Aliza and I lamented that we weren't going to get a chance to play Klingons. And we realized that we were now in a position where we didn't have to ask anybody's permission. We just had to figure out how to make it work. And immediately we started having conversations about what it would look like and what we wanted out of it. One of the first things that we started talking about was that it would be an all-Klingon campaign. That led to conversations with Modifius, and as it turns out, they were releasing an RPG book, a core book, around the same time that we were thinking about launching this game. And as it turns out, our friends at Star Trek Online happened to be releasing their Year of the Klingon around the same time. So Aliza and I basically called the War Council, and all of us sat down and said, let's just do this thing. So this is what brings us up to not only the game, but the Day of Honor. And thank you, Aliza, for helping us put all this together and producing the show. I'm going to go ahead and just kick things off. We are going to be taking questions from the audience today. We've already got a couple of coming in. So we're just going to go ahead and kick into this and start asking some questions and talking a little bit about Klingons and what it is to tabletop roleplay Klingons in this strange medium where now we share our stories live on Twitch. So that gives you a little bit of background on who we are and what we're doing. Let me go ahead and start with Aliza. Aliza, my first question for you is a big one. I'm just going to jump into one of the big questions, one of the big things that you and I tackled the moment we decided to start talking about running a Klingon campaign. Casting. And why it was so important to you, because one of the first things you and I talked about was, since we had full control over this and we wanted to do the thing, casting was very important to us. And I wanted to give you the floor and tell us why casting was a big deal.
Cool. Well, casting this show was very exciting. I wanted to bring in, number one, new players. I wanted to bring in amazing improvisers and performers. And I wanted to bring in all people of color. And so in doing that, I was able to tap into, I think all of you except Phillip were found, and Jade, because I know Phillip and Jade, but I think Jade, Quincy, and Christopher responded to a post I did in a UCB diversity group. Is that right? Yeah, okay. So that's how we found the three of them. And then Phillip, I knew, and I was just like, I want Phillip in the show. So I just cast Phillip. I just offered Phillip and I said, hey, Eric, what do you think? And then we interviewed him just like everyone else, and he got cast. But yeah, besides that, we didn't do any, those were my my desires for a cast. And of course, people who know how to play well and are, friendly and can get along and can learn the rules of a game and would be down to do something like this. And the funny thing is that we interviewed a lot of different people from very, different backgrounds, both their own, heritage and stuff, but also creative backgrounds. We interviewed writers and gamers and improvisers and actors, obviously, and just some people do like Star Trek podcasts and really, really cool people. And this is the group that we decided to be our mains because I just felt like everyone here is a really strong improviser and already just like had lots of really fun ideas. Like when we talked to them, they were inspired. I could see like that twinkle of inspiration in everyone's eyes when they talked about Klingons and Star Trek. Even, like even if y'all weren't, some of us are more like deeply steeped into Star Trek or were before this show started, and some of us aren't, but it didn't matter because like I could see the twinkle of excitement in your eyes, and that was super important to me. So I'm just super happy with this cast. Like it's just so incredible.
Yeah, I remember one of the things that we talked about too when we were talking about the idea of coming and getting new players. There's one of the things that my experience in running tabletop RPGs and live stream is it's really exciting to introduce an audience to a bunch of players who have never played a tabletop RPG before. Like there's no pressure because the audience loves watching people discover this new hobby and fall in love with it. It's such a welcoming community and everyone is so eager to make you fall in love with it. And so that was another part, I think, of like one of the excitements of like getting new people, new blood in.
Yes. I know like my experience being a brand new, like I had played games maybe like 3 times before Shield of Tomorrow premiered. And so I had that experience of being like a very fresh new player and getting to like dive in as an actor, but also learn rules of a game and how do you handle performing while there's rules and then it's all improv too. So like, I don't know. I just remember that feeling and I just wanted to have people who could also experience that.
Yeah, that's a good segue because my next question is actually for Jade. Jade Law with the awesome name. Your character.
Yep.
One of the things that I love about this game is when we started developing the characters, the one thing that I stress to everybody is whatever you do not feel bound by the stereotype of a Klingon. A lot of the Klingon literature that I've read that I have quoted and loved has shown us what Klingons look like that are not on screen, what Klingons live like in their day-to-day lives. What I love about your character, Adaj, first of all, for a lot of people who haven't figured it out yet, Adaj is actually Jade's name backwards. And I got a message from Sam DeLev going, oh my God, I just figured this out. But your character is an excellent example of somebody who absolutely does not actually fit the mold of a stereotypical Klingon. You ran with it. I'm just curious, how has it been playing this character? Have you felt any pressure or have you really enjoyed exploring her so far?
I've loved playing this character, and like I'm sorry, Eric, I've sent you like a book of like her. I like sat down and I wrote like, oh, this is what she was like as a child, and then this happened to her, and this happened to her. So I have a very rich back history, but all of that informs me so much and gives me motivation into what she's doing. And it's just so exciting to create a completely new person, plop her in, and make her tiny. I think that's one of the main characteristics about my Klingon character is she's 5'2", and everyone else is immensely tall around her. And one of the things that I really love about storytelling now is that what makes people different and sometimes like how people have suffered, like that becomes their superpower. That's what makes you amazing, is what makes you different from other people. So my character, even if she's small, she's using that to her own benefit, she's gonna jump onto someone's shoulders so that she can strangle them. And that's just, using that tininess to your own advantage. It's, I feel like I've come across in my own life, dealing with being a person of color and being a woman and being small. And like, you don't like suffer from it. You take it and you like rage against the world with it. So I'm channeling a lot of those feelings into this character.
Right. I love it because I'm watching chat and you're being called Stabby Doctor, Murder Doctor. It's great. It looks like the audience is caught on. My last part of the question is how has it been for you? Because this is your first time. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is your first time tabletop role playing?
Yep.
So this is your very first time in a role playing game at a table, and you're doing it on Twitch and a live stream. It's totally new in ecosystem. How has it been for you getting to know our community, who sometimes call us Ox Crew? They're the whimsies that we have. Like the Streampunks have like this plethora of nicknames for themselves. But how has it been getting to know our community?
It's, oh my God, I'm gonna like get emotional. It's so overwhelming, like the amount of love and support. Like you guys, we've been working on this for a while, and you guys said just wait until you get there, and I'm like, oh, okay, like these are some real high expectations y'all are setting here. But like the first time I saw people's reactions on Twitter and then in chat, like it's really nice. It's really nice to see people appreciate like the work that we put into it and love the like uniqueness of our cast, and how I feel like one of the things that I love about our cast in particular is how everyone is kind of like ostracized in their own little way, different from the other Klingons. And that's kind of like what brought us together, is this feeling of being an outsider. We're like alone together. And it's like, you know, I was like the drama kid in high school too. And you feel that sense of collaboration, of a community that supports you no matter what. And I'm so excited and happy to be part of this community. So yeah.
I love that you brought that up. I love that you brought that up, because the truth is that was not coordinated. When everyone submitted their characters, everyone submitted a character with a common theme. You did not fit into what Klingons viewed as Klingon society. One way or the other, each character, from the commander to our doctor to our security officer, all of y'all, everyone has a backstory or a thrust to their character that makes them outcast in some way through the eyes of a stereotypical Klingon society. It's really, really interesting. Y'all are I was like, man, if Guardians of the Galaxy, if they were Klingons, and like, it's kind of, the only thing we're missing is, oh, well, no, I was going to say the only thing we're missing is a talking raccoon, but you do have a murder shrimp, if I remember correctly, your Klingon war shrimp pet that we have yet to introduce into the game.
I'm so excited for that. I'm so excited. But yeah, because we are a cast of people of color, like, you know what it's like to be marginalized in society. And we want to bring that feeling into this game to like really express it and speak truth to our own experiences, even in this like beautiful world.
Great, yeah. My next question, I'm going to ask this question to both Quincy and Phillip. I'm going to start with you, Quincy. So, Quincy, you and I, of all the cast members that connected quickly, you and I connected really fast, because you and I have a love from RPGs for a while now. Especially, I really bonded with you, Quincy, because you love Changeling the Dreaming. It is so rare to come across somebody just like out of the blue who knows what that game is and enjoys it and like digs it. I wanted to know, now that you're coming into Star Trek Adventures and meeting this cast, I wanted to give you a chance to tell me, like, what has your experience been with tabletop RPGs, and what has this one been for you so far?
It's so funny because, like, I remember being in like middle school, high school, and I had a group of friends that I knew from outside high school. Like, some had just not gone there anymore or whatever. And I was on this like kind of coming out of my shell phase when I was like 13, and I was like, "Hey, I heard about this thing called D&D." And I had like played video games that were like based on D&D rules and settings and stuff. But the thing is, these were like kind of Long Beach area, like Gateway Cities, LA County area, gothy, punky kids. So they're like, "Don't play D&D. We have a game called Vampire the Masquerade. That's so much cooler." And I was like, I don't know the difference. I'm 13. So we played that, and that was actually my first experience. And it's funny because I had, up to that point, assumed that tabletop role-playing games were just kind of like these very number stats strategy games. And at that point, I was really into that kind of thing. And I think that's a cool thing to still play. But that gave me a window into the idea that, like, oh, tabletop role-playing games can be a way to explore character and really play with like stories and not just tactics and winning and losing and fighting and stuff. Again, that's all super cool. I think that's part of some kinds of games, but that really set me on this chain this way. And then I got into like that whole world, all those like big franchises of that gaming company, right? Like Vampire and Werewolf, Mage and Changeling, as we mentioned, and just the fact that they explore these ideas of like, what are your philosophies on reality, or what does it mean to be trying to be good while fighting against yourself, or like what does it mean to be good in the micro, even though knowing that you're kind of part of this like bigger problem that's happening. Like these are all these like big themes. And then in college, like that kind of went away. Like I was like, I got to focus on school and making new friends, and I went to college at Santa Cruz, which is several hundred miles away from home. And then afterward, I feel like I was like, okay, well, that was the time in my life when role-playing games were just back in high school. And then it started getting popular again through shows like, that all the people are doing on streaming and live play and in podcast form. And so I started getting back into it. And I've been running like a monthly D&D game with my friends. But yeah, the opportunity to actually like play with a new group of people and actually get to play, I think people who are perennial GMs and dungeon masters and storytellers get know this very well. It's like, oh, you get to actually play with new people, and I think that's such a fun experience. So getting to do that with something I'm a big nerd for, which is Star Trek, is such a delight.
So my next question for you then, Quincy, is first of all, one of the things that I found really interesting about you when we first talking, didn't you used to work for NPR? You did some work with NPR, is that correct?
Yeah, I worked at an NPR station.
Right.
So,
okay.
For a number of years, and so yeah, our local NPR station here in Southern California, and that was really great. I mean, I enjoyed being that space, but it also means that I have a background in like a little bit of sound production and audio storytelling.
It's been helpful.
And even my independent work, I do like a podcast called Asian Americana, and I use that to tell stories and stuff like that. So that's where I feel like that's where I'm telling nonfiction stories that validate who we have been, who we are, people's experiences across the way. And in things like this, that's fiction, but play, it's like who we can imagine ourselves to be. And I think those are both really important.
So real quick before we move on, one thing I wanted to talk to you about that we've actually had conversations with before, like session zeros and afterwards, and Jade's jumped in on this too, but like we've talked about, you have expressed how, because my next question was going to be who your character is inspired by, but the bigger question is your favorite moments by Asian actors in Star Trek. You love to quote that fucking great moment, pardon the vulgarity, for Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country, when Sulu has just had enough. And like, what is the importance, do you think, of really showcasing that in Trek in particular?
I mean, going back to like the original series, right? Star Trek has always been this like great showcase of, again, what we can imagine could be, right? The 1960s, and even now, is not like what our real world is not like what Star Trek portrays. It's this kind of like great future where you don't have to worry about like being sick and poor, and we can like people from different backgrounds can work together. And yes, those times always affect the lens. Like in the 60s, it was like people from all sorts of countries can work together. And I think as time has gone, it'd be like people of different ethnic backgrounds and geographic backgrounds and sexual orientations and gender identities and stuff like that. I think those are continuing to shift with the lens of how we make it now. But those moments are important to me because it's like, again, it's how we can imagine ourselves to potentially be, whether it's individually or as a community, right? And so, George Takei's character, Hikaru Sulu, is such a big impact, but not only him, right? There's like all sorts of people. There's like Nurse Ogawa on TNG. There's Keiko O'Brien. There's Harry Kim, there's all these like Asian American characters, and continuing more so, right? That like, again, it lets you, by having many of them, you get to see how different they can be. And I think that's super important in media representation. It's not just about like one thing being the best. Oh, look, he's super smart and a hero and stuff like that. That's great. I think it's important also to be like, they're super nerdy, and that's also okay. Or like they do speak with a different dialect or accent, and that's normal. That's not inherently bad. It's about who gets to tell that story and who gets to play that role and how much control they get it, right? Like, it's so they don't become just this like flat character. It's about if they can become a full character and have a broad range of different characters, so that no one person, no one story has the burden of having to be perfect in how it like tells these things.
Yeah. Right on. Well said. My question then, Phillip, you've got some history with tabletop RPG. I met you through Aliza. You were a part of Overlight at Geek and Sundry, and that was the first time I brought that. And there was a lot of whispers when I heard you had been cast in Overlight, because everyone was like, "We got a Power Ranger on Overlight!" Like, everyone was like super excited. What has your experience been stepping into this world as somebody who has done film work? What's it been like stepping into the world of tabletop RPG for you?
All love. I mean, it's just been so supportive. The community's really supportive. And they've been patient with me because, as you know, Eric, I've been a little anxious as far as playing this tabletop game, but you've been really thorough with the rules, breaking. I'm a little unfamiliar with the world, but I'm still learning, about, watching my episodes of TNG, which has been fun. So, it's a great outlet to get creative and have fun. So I'm just glad that the community's kind of accepted me, which has been great. So.
Yeah, I everyone, like you were talked about quite often. I think one of the things I love about your character in particular, Phillip, is of all the characters on the ship, your character is very silently like. What I love about your character is that he exudes. He's definitely not your typical Klingon. He is what you see on the show. You don't see too many Klingons that are hungry to science. You know what I mean? Or who are interested in the mystery. And behind that, there is this love for the hunt too. And I love it because there's this juxtaposition of a Klingon that really has got a Bill Nye side to him, but then there's also a side that just wants to hunt beasts in the middle of a hot jungle with his bare hands. He can't get away from the fact that he's Klingon, and I love that about your character. It's a great contrast. I was really excited to see it. Yeah. So my next question I actually had is for Chris. Chris, one of the things that you brought to the table, which I thought was super important and everyone got excited about when we learned, is that one of the things that you wanted to tackle with your character was mixed heritage. Your character is Klingon and Vulcan. So fire and oil there on that one. But one of the things that you also wanted to approach was the idea of mixed heritage being brought into a culture that is very, very mono in that regard. Like, it's very homogenous. Everyone is like very Klingon, in particular because Klingons have a prejudice against Romulans and sometimes don't differentiate when they see ears that have a point. So I wanted to ask you, bringing your character in, Kotar, is this mountain of a Klingon that kills things with great efficiency. You created a Klingon that on the outside looks quite like a Klingon that we've all seen before, but is anything but. Talk to me a little bit about why you felt it was important to bring in a character of mixed heritage and what you want to play through with that character.
The big main reason is the mixing of cultures. I really am anti-stereotypes of any nature. I play sports all my life. I'm a very large black man. You know what I mean? There's like things that you're expected to do, but then as you look more into both of those cultures, you see how things start to overlap, right? Vulcans and Klingons are both very violent, but they like seek to try to sand those edges out. Like, Vulcans did it in trying to remove their emotions because they were like, okay, there must be logic to supersede all of this instinct that we have. And then Klingons love poetry and all this other stuff that people don't highlight that much. And it's the what I've had to live my whole life of. I am large. I do play sports, but I also am a very nerdy dude. You know what I mean? Like, I like anime. I play video games. Like, I listen to My Chemical Romance and I listen to Tupac. Like, there is not one set way of living life or how to succeed in that existence. And I really thought that's important to highlight. Also, it'll be fun to be a character who has even more anger to try to control and like make good decisions do it. It's like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a double dose of like shit that I have to really use my mind to dampen and wash off. And I think that's also a big part of why I want to do it. Right
on. So bouncing off of that, the question I want to propose to the entire group, and then we're going to get into audience questions. It's 2:50. So we're going to do a quick lightning round here. I'm going to ask everybody. I'll start with you, Phillip. What was your experience like? what has been your favorite part of Klingon culture that maybe you didn't know about that you've been learning about since we started playing? Because as part of Blood of the Void, a lot of y'all were either not familiar with Star Trek really or not familiar with Klingon culture. This has been a really fun exploration of like deep diving into this new iconic sci-fi culture. Phillip, we'll start with you. What has been like, what's something that you have discovered about the Heart of the Warrior, the Klingon, that you really enjoy or that you thought was cool as hell?
I mean, I think first, just learning about honor, you know, and trying to live your life like with honor, but at the same time, the Klingons will pretty much do whatever they can to get whatever it is that they're trying to get accomplished. They'll do it, like no matter where humans will look at it and be like, whoa, that's morally that's probably wrong. Not saying to live your life more. I don't know, what am I saying? I'm basically saying live your life with honor, and basically live your life with honor and
right on.
Yeah, I don't want to take up
right
time.
On. That's great. That's great. That's what drew me into the whole culture. Aliza, have you learned anything new? I mean, you've already pretty knowledgeable of Klingons. You are surrounded by Klingons in your everyday life. Like, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, so for me, yeah, I'm already kind of steeped in Trekness and had already been a little bit steeped in Klingonness, but obviously, like, doing the research to play this character was a level of Klingon research that I haven't done before. So yeah, I have learned a lot of things, and it's also kind of deepened my understanding of Klingons in a way. And I think for me, the thing that kind of like has given me the newest take on Klingonness was reading the Klingon Art of War. Is a really fantastic book, and it was written by Keith DeCandido, who was on one of our panels
just
today.
On, yeah.
Yeah, he was on the Modifius panel because he wrote some content for their core book, the Klingon core book. And so yeah, the Klingon Art of War is, you know, I had built my character to be a war strategist and battle strategist, someone who's like nerds out on battles. She grew up as a farm girl, so she was like in between like shoveling bales of hay. She was reading her Klingon Art of War book and the actual like Sun Tzu Art of War book as well. So I was like, well, I need to read both of those if I'm building that into this character. So I read both of them, and they both definitely like helped solidify that for me in building this character. But the Klingon Art of War specifically, I saw stuff in there that I was like, this is just good advice for Aliza. Like things about like some of the precepts are like strike strongly the first time or something like that. Like basically don't half-ass things that you really care about. And don't procrastinate, just things like that. And yeah, I don't know. I just have found a new level of connecting with Klingons in ways that I'm like, oh, I see how that's valuable for humans too.
I want to get this to our audience questions. So let me just lightning round. Jade, what was the thing that stood out to you?
Yeah, I can go real quick. I love that they speak more through action than words. Coming from a family that's never told me I love you or I'm proud of you, like you show it by what you do and act around each other rather than just blind words.
Nice. How about you, Quincy?
Just exploring the fact that like they do have this like caste system, but how do you break out from that, right? Again, with the whole theme of like not fitting in expectations, and just exploring the idea that like Star Trek sometimes gets this criticism that like every other culture is like this monoculture, like everyone in their world is the same, everyone in their species is the same. And we're really exploring the fact that we're not, which gets to let us play with the idea that in real life, people from backgrounds and places and cultures aren't monolithic. And I feel like I didn't really fully understand that until I started like doing that deeper research and seeing, you know, like how Martok and Gowron characters have that interaction and how we can play with that in ours.
Totally different chancellors, those two. Yeah. How about you, Chris? What's really stood out to you?
I think going in, again, I will say this with full honesty. My father is a much larger Trekkie than myself. He groomed me immersed in all sci-fi, Stargate, Star Trek. I was just leaned more towards Star Wars because I didn't really care about the whole peace and prosperity thing. I'm like, that's not what I want. I want to see things blow up. And then you see the Klingons, and you're like, oh, they're just Vikings. It's like, cool, whatever. You start to research it, you realize that they're more an amalgamation of like Spartans, Bushido code of like samurai. Like there's a lot of layers to how they make the decisions. And as you start to like peel that back, you see that there's a reason to their violence. It's not just blind violence. And I think that
the Spartan samurai space Vikings.
Yeah. A wonderful combo, honestly.
Right. Let me jump into some audience questions here. The first one I just want to get out of the way right now because I want to give it's an opportunity to give a shout out. Eric, can you talk about the intro music? Yes. I can tell you that the intro music was composed by Jason Charles Miller, who you have heard do lots of music. He's done music for Critical Role. He's done music for Felicia Day. He is amazing. He is going to be releasing that single. The theme song to Blood of the Void is going to be available at iTunes at the end of the month. So make sure to follow Jason Charles Miller's Twitter account because he's going to be posting that up and it's going to be available to everybody for purchase. So you guys will be able to grab it. And it is a really amazing intro. Jason did write Klingon lyrics. He is singing Klingon and the translation will be available quite soon. So here's a question from the panel. If it doesn't give away too much story-wise, what was the strongest inspiration for your character? Now, I do want to go ahead and say that because we are not at Sunday, Monday yet, we are still in a spoiler-free zone, so we can't specifically talk about the previous episode yet, so we don't ruin it for anybody who might want to check it out. So, lightning around this, it's 2:55. So, real quick, we've already kind of touched on it. Tell me very quickly, what was the main inspiration for your characters? And I'll start with you, Quincy.
Easy. General Chang from Star Trek 6.
Right.
Klingon who's still a warrior, still a fighter, but like also a politician and quoting Shakespeare at your enemy just to taunt them while you fight them. Beautiful. See this movie, Star Trek 6. It's weird promoting this movie. It's like 30 but it's really great.
Yeah. How about you, Chris?
Well, I mean, honestly, you just gotta. It's a mix of Worf, Cisco, and Spock. It's just like I just like those three levels of petty. They all are deliciously are just hit you with a "you're dumb" comment, and that's really what I'm trying to channel.
Nice. How about you, Phillip? You've got a pretty unique character. You play the chief science officer on the I.K.S. Borqu. What was the inspiration behind your character?
I think because I'm so unfamiliar with the world that it just kind of left like an open canvas for me to kind of create from, just my own experiences. And I didn't want to play your typical Klingon because I thought that's like a little stereotypical and boring. So with your help, Eric, which, you helped me a lot as far as creating this character. That's what we came up with. So and we're still learning, Yeah.
I love that your character, just like everybody else, like who was making a character that was kind of in defiance of a stereotypical Klingon, there was still this desire to be a badass with a bat'leth, and I totally appreciate that.
Well, that was totally my childhood of being bullied. You know what I mean? Being bullied. Yeah. So like I was pretty much forced to learn the bat'leth, and So,
how about you, Jade?
In my own life, I'm pretty much a very cynical pacifist. So I decided to go the opposite route and become a very violent optimist instead.
Hashtag violent optimist. That needs to be on a mug. All right, Aliza, what is the inspiration behind Bimir? Commander Bimir.
I already said farm girl, and that came about because years ago when I first learned about the Klingon caste, I was just so enamored with the idea of there being Klingon farmers, and I think that has always stuck with me. So I wanted her to be a farm girl, very light nod to Captain Kirk and his background, but that's kind of it. And someone who basically is always trying to prove herself and trying to get glory in a way that she's always having to like prove that she's worth, the command that she has.
Right on. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. We do have a question. Are you making your character sheets from Blood of the Void and the I.K.S. Borqu ship character sheet available to the public? And if so, where can we find it? Jody, is actually, that is going to be available on that is going to be available on the Patreon account. Right now, it's called the League of Whimsy. It is going to be making the transition over to the Streampunks Patreon account, which is where you can support this RPG group and its endeavors. That's going to be evolving this month. We haven't set a time yet, but before the end of the month, you'll be seeing that. It is going to be posted for patrons who are interested in getting involved and want to support the group. The I.K.S. Borqu is going to be posted there actually this weekend. So probably not too long after this panel series, I would say check for anybody who's a member of the League of Whimsy. Y'all can check that in the league tomorrow. You should be seeing that PDF posted. The character sheets themselves, I'm going to advise at the moment. I'm going to talk to the players first to see if they want to share their character sheets. There are some values on there that they may want to reveal in game. But the I.K.S. Borqu will be available to the League of Whimsy Patreons. This is a great question from Galaxian. This will be a more violent campaign than a usual Star Trek Adventures game. Are you prepared to greet your ancestors when you die with honor? I think we all agree that the answer to that is yes. Would you say? Yeah. I think the sentiment there.
We're also making backup characters.
What's that?
We're also making backup characters,
yes.
or at least I am.
That's actually a good thing to point out. So we did talk about this. This is something we can tell the audience here. For anybody who's interested in getting involved or watching the show, from the get-go, Aliza and I acknowledged that this was going to be a violent game. We knew that it was going to be based in violence, and we're not surrendering hope punk, but it is going to be told from the point of view of Klingons. And in many cases, the path of a Klingon is to Stovokor. And so that means we have to prepare for the fact that the right character choice might be staying on board the ship while it blows up so you can die gloriously. Those options are going to be available, and no punches are going to be pulled on dice rolls. So we've already talked about the fact that we need to make sure that we have secondary characters in the chamber in case we lose one. So we'll see what happens. We got a question here from Anne. Chris, how was your birthday? Have you managed to see some fan art of the Klingon Fight Club? And what does the rest of the cast think of the fan art? Before I turn that over to Chris, I'll tell you that the rest of the cast, I think I speak on behalf of everybody, fan art's mind-blowing. I told everybody to be prepared for how mind-blowing the fan art is. How was your birthday, Chris?
My birthday was quite good. I just hung out with my dog. I got some wine and a steak. Let's say blood wine for the sake of this. And just treated myself and, chilled out.
Right on.
Yeah, I have not seen the fan art. I don't have a Twitter, but I did just ask about it before this started. So,
yeah,
hope is fire. I don't know what to say other than that.
Yeah. Here's a question from Dino Hernandez. I hope I'm pronouncing that. I think it's Dino. How do you go about making a character and their sheet? Did you reunite with Eric to discuss the backstory and all, or did you just make it and then give it to Eric? I can go ahead and tank that one. We originally we did not have the Klingon core book to our disposal, so we were using the Star Trek Adventures backgrounds and just altering them to make them Klingon. What I had everyone do is go off and make their own characters, come back to me, and then we played them a little bit, rejiggered them, I guess. We kind of basically put everything back together and polished it and got a little more defined on what they wanted. And that gave inspiration to new backstory. The only backstory that has pretty much remained mostly the same from start to finish has been Bamir. Would you agree with that, Aliza? You already had a pretty strong concept from her to get go. And with her being from a minor house that's on the rise, the only thing that changed was how you guys acquired the bird of prey. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah. Once we got the Klingon core book, I basically just rebuilt Bamir using all of that character life path, but nothing really changed for Bamir. And it was cool that I was able to do that in the new Klingon core book because I also had more options for different talents and things that actually fit Bamir better now that in a Klingon context.
Right. Here's an interesting question from Tim Pendragon, who is a fan and a wonderful person in the community. We all have our own interpretations of Klingon society. What's your personal take on how the Empire approaches inclusion in regards to queer and disabled citizens? And also the Jekwu, which stands for the conquered people or client races of the Empire. So this is actually a really good question because there is content that has been baked into if you don't mind me taking this one, Aliza, because you and I talked about this a little bit right when we started this game. One of the big content pieces is Star Trek. Star Trek as a property that stretches back to the early 70s, late 60s, is subjected to the same media scrutiny that everything else is in the modern day, and has things that need to sort of evolve and be brought into modern sensibility and modern enlightenment, as it were, inclusion and gender identity and stuff like that. How would Klingon culture approach this kind of stuff? Now, there have been some places where Klingons have a very interesting approach to, say, disability, where Klingons, Martok, for example, refuses having a replacement eye, even though he could. He wants to wear that patch and bear the scar proudly. On the other hand, Klingons in some of the fiction have expressed a complete revulsion to the idea of prosthetic limbs, which obviously can be problematic. Now, you know, as we become more aware of what ableism is and how that manifests in our fiction, some of that stuff becomes problematic. How do you approach things like the conquered peoples of the Klingon Empire, the Jekpui, as we know? The people that have been conquered by the Klingon empires are now kind of like second-class citizens. How do we approach all of that stuff? It's a very tricky thing to do when you're playing that on a live stream, and it's something that we have all talked about. In regards to it, like our approach to it is there are so many concepts that I think were baked into the sci-fi itself to kind of give it that grit, or to separate it from to make it a little more alien. But the truth is, what I'm trying to get to is I think the Klingon Empire, having such an emphasis on how you live and how you die, I do not, in my interpretation, when I run Blood of the Void and my interpretation of Klingons in Star Trek, in my universe, the way I approach them is I do not see Klingon society having any aversion whatsoever to queerness in any way, shape, or form. I don't see. I choose Klingons to from everything that we do, from disability to gender identity in Klingon culture. It all starts from the teachings of I.K.S, which tell us about how to live with honor and how to die with honor. That being the heart of what it is to be a Klingon, everything else of who you are as an individual and the identity that you claim is yours and yours alone, and is to be respected, especially if you are following that warrior code. The Jekpui, it's really interesting in Klingon fiction because they are a conquered people, but the Klingons, once they conquer a people, they drop a regional governor there and then they peace the hell out. And it's interesting because the Klingon core book actually addresses the fact that conquered people of the Klingon Empire almost never rebel. It's been something like half a century since there's been any problems on any of these planets, because the Klingons literally just, nope, your culture and everything's fine. You keep everything. You keep absolutely everything. You're just now under the protectorate of the Klingon Empire, and if we need to mine for resources, we will. But you guys are good. And as a result, a lot of the worlds that have been conquered by the Klingons are like, oh, okay, I guess we're not going to raise a fuss. So it's this weird sort of, it's a weird dicey area, because it could be pointed at as a problem area for sure, but the way the fiction has presented it historically has not been problematic that I have seen so far. So it is something that I'm looking forward to visiting with this crew. Klingon culture and these concepts and how they unfold in this, I think, are really going to be interesting to address with this crew and give you guys and your interpretation, especially as people of color, and how this is interpreted, and like, let's just be honest, how that's going to affect our views and how it's presented as colonialism in Star Trek. Like, it'll be really interesting, and I want to give this game a platform. How would these Klingons approach that? I would like to explore that for sure. So, long answer there. All right. I'm going to pass this off now. The next questions I have, this is for you, Aliza. Commander Bimir, would she allow a Gorn crew member?
I don't see why not. I mean, if they're part of the KDF and they're willing to be a warrior and be honorable, sure. Why not? Yeah.
And to expand on that, Aliza, and to wrap up what we were just talking about, this is something we've approached right now with how women are treated in Klingon society. because traditionally Klingon society has been very misogynistic, but also very contradictory.
It's wildly all over the place.
All over the place.
Yeah.
So with Martok now being currently the Chancellor of the Klingon Empire, I see it being a lot more of like, I don't see it being quite so stringent in the way they exact their prejudices.
Yeah, I know early on in us like building this show, I said to Eric and to the cast, I was like, I never want it to be a thing where it's like, oh, you're a woman commander of a ship. Like, I don't know, I just find that boring. Like,
it's boring.
Yeah, it's kind of done. And
we need to normalize it.
Still, yeah, we need to normalize it, even though, and maybe because we still live in a world where people are still idiots when it comes to that. I just wanted to have it be like, no, she's the commander of the ship, and that's it, and there's no problems. There could be problems with the fact that she's a farm girl and that she like didn't go to the academy, and she now is commanding a ship with no like formal training. That could be an issue. That could be something to call her out on or give her shit about.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, I think. What's up?
Can you do it once and then you just shoot the dude in the face? Can we just
and everyone just goes back to their drinks like whatever.
Well, we could be at a bar and everybody looks like, oh snap.
Yeah, just moving on. Yeah, I especially with a culture with there's such a rich warrior tradition on every level. I love to imagine Klingon society being like, you waited how long to have women be captains? Like, what kind of backward species are you? Let's see. Okay, so this is a good question. I'm gonna toss this one out. I'll go ahead and answer this one first, real quick, because this is actually a quick question. This is from Orange-itis asks, how did we come up with the name of the ship in Blood of the Void? That was actually the Borqu was actually a quick. Like, that was something I actually threw at the group. That literally, it translates into Klingon is like, I believe, I have to go look it up again, but I believe it's like raven or like some kind of like, it's some kind of flying animal. It's like a bird of some kind. But the idea was that it was like, and we probably have some Klingon language experts. I think you should pose this on your panel, Aliza, and see if anyone knows what Borqu means. Because you'll be talking to language experts, right?
Yes, I will, and I will ask that. But I thought you said it. I thought you told us what it meant.
I just don't have my notes in front of me, but I seem to remember. I seem to remember that it means like a raven of some kind or some kind of like bird.
I thought you said it was thunder.
Oh, it is thunder. Thank you. You're right. It is thunder. Borqu. Borqu means thunder. The idea was that it was a storm of some kind. That's what it was. Thank you so much. There was like 5 different names that we were originally going to name it, and of course each name came with a translation. And I think I got a little scrambled. Here's a question. This might be our last question. Actually, it's 3:11. So let me just go ahead and ask this out. This is for the entire crew. So we'll go down our list here. I'm going to start with you, Jade. What are your views about Klingon honor? Like, what is it that you find fun or interesting or really empowering about Klingon's sense of honor?
Oh boy, what a huge last quick question. What do you think of honor?
Yeah,
I think honor is kind of, to me, it's what you make of it. I think it's one of my values or talents or something is like fate schmate, like you make your own destiny. So I'm of the belief of like, yeah, honor is great and all, but I'm also like a very goal-oriented just person. So like if I can accomplish my goal with honor, great. But like for me as a Klingon, I'm not necessarily gonna let honor stop me from accomplishing
right. Look, if a Cardassian needs a dick in his neck because he's not talking to you properly, then that's
how it's gonna go.
It's going to happen. So then let me ask you, Chris.
Well, here comes that heritage thing. Logic supersedes honor in my particular home.
Ooh, interesting.
If you try to test my honor, it is in my name. Kotar, the ferryman of death, I will change your opinion on that. Rather,
but the teachings of Storik are more appealing to you than necessarily the teachings of I.K.S, you would say.
Yes, just so because you have to quench this rage. Like every 7 years, I need to kill something, or I need to, you know what I mean? Like I gotta get this together, and then I've gotten it together through not just giving in to impulses like, oh, my honor dictates this. Like I'm gonna let you get away with it, but when we're in an opportune situation, we gonna have to talk about it, me and you, and then we're gonna see how that ends. Like
nice. How about you, Quincy?
I feel like for me, as well as I'm trying to place this on Ramyan, my character, is that like honor, much like tradition and practice, is something that it's in practice, which means it evolves over time. It needs to change with the culture. It changes with the thing. It's not habit. Habit is just something you did because that's what you did last time, and you don't think about it. And I think for a character like Ramyan, who's like a scholar and trained for like political court, it has to adjust and adapt with the times, or else it's just as useless as like a dull batlet. You know, it's honor is something that is a tool and a way of life that changes with the society it's part of.
Right. How about you, Phillip?
I feel like it's behaving with virtue, but at the same time, I know from the Audible book that if there's something in your way, you have to push right through it, and don't walk around it. If it's in your way, you know, you have to knock it down. Also, they talk about hope and how there's always a chance, no matter if the odds are stacked against you. There's always a chance of you defeating whatever's in your way, and so that kind of gives me hope. At the same time, you know, I try to I need some hope in my life too.
Yeah,
we all need it.
I will close out by saying that for me, one of the things that I love about the Klingon sense of honor is it is a great equalizer. I am a Buddhist, and one of the things that the Buddha teaches is that all beings tremble before death. I love the idea that honor takes an approach that doesn't dismiss the great challenge of facing death, and what it puts emphasis on isn't your ability. It's not who you are. It's not who you love. It's not what you look like. It's about how you live and face your life and how you face your death. I love that. It is beholden to no specific creed. It is how you exist and live and die. And if you preserve your honor, to live by that sense of that code. I absolutely love it. It is the thing that drew me to Klingons, and one of the reasons why I wanted to run a game that focuses on a society that tries to reconcile those noble ideas with their natures as Klingons. That is the life and struggle of what it is to live as a warrior and to die as a warrior in Klingon society. Well beyond caste. Living with honor can be done if you are tilling the soil and spinning weaving yarn, or it could be done wielding a batleth. And I adore that. And it's one of the things that I actually fascinated with about the culture. So I'm thrilled that we've gotten a chance to run this game. I'm thrilled that we're getting a chance as a cast to get to know each other, become friends, and tell the story of these characters living in these tumultuous times. And Blood of the Void is near and dear to my heart. I'm so grateful that we are getting to run this game and tell the story. That is going to actually wrap us up. Before I go, I want to let everybody know coming up next is really special. Star Trek Online their next panel is The House Divided. And it's a big freaking deal because two of my heroes in Star Trek are going to be on this panel, Robert O'Reilly and J.G. Hertzler. This is Gowron and Martok are going to be on this panel. I lost my mind when I found out about this. And it doesn't get it just gets better because after that at 4:15, Aliza is hosting a panel with a royal cast of Klingons and brilliant actors from Discovery, including our beloved Mary Chieffo, the mother of our empire, who we absolutely adore and are a huge fan of and is a big supporter of Blood of the Void. Thank you, Mary, by the way, for watching the entire first episode in chat and hanging with fans. That was freaking awesome. That's going to do it for us. My friends, thank you so much for joining us for this panel, for hanging out with us today on the Day of Honor so we can celebrate this incredible creation. As campy as it might sound, I want to take a moment, since this is going to be this is our sign off, just as a thank you to everyone who has ever contributed to the property of Star Trek, from the writers to the gaffers to Gene Roddenberry. Thank you for creating this world for us to play in. I am a huge fan of the Klingon race, and with you all in Blood of the Void, I'm looking forward to telling the stories of the lives and deaths of these amazing characters that you've all created for us. Catch us here on Q Times on Monday nights at 6:30 p.m. for Clear Skies, which is our Federation campaign. And then at the end of the month, once a month, Blood of the Void. Until then, hailing frequencies are closed.